Why the war room is a farce. Well, today I'm going to be as typically offensive, politically incorrect as always, and talk about why the war room is illogical, farcical, counterproductive, and, to be frank, downright silly. As a strategist, it's my opinion, my observation, and most assuredly my experience that the ability to think logically underpins any successful strategy. So in this segment, I'd like to challenge the logic of a practice that has become the norm for corporates in the production phase of big-ticket bids. The war room. What a nonsense. What an absolute nonsense. What an illogical, counterproductive nonsense to create an environment that fosters maximum interruptions, maximum distractions for the execution of a task that requires maximum concentration and maximum focus. The task to which I am referring, of course, is writing, and not just any old writing either, strategic writing no less. Now, writing is a task for the individual. As logical as that sounds, it seems to escape a lot of organisations. Now, yes, I admit that liaison with the authors of other submission sections in a large multi-section bid is obviously required, but this represents the minority percentage of the time that should be dedicated to authoring activities, and the necessary interaction is something that could be easily conducted by phone or by popping into someone else's office or by meeting them in a meeting room for the specific amount of time that's essential for that purpose. The majority of the response authoring time is still, or should be still, spent in the actual writing function. Now, what I want to do is investigate the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is the fact that a clear-cut, comprehensive, documented in detail bid strategy hasn't been produced. Prior, that is, to setting the writing team loose on the task of writing. If a detailed strategy document, preferably supplemented with a writer's guide for each major section of the submission, were to hand for each section author, there'd be very little need for discussion from that point onwards. And that's because the theme, the content, and the direction for specific answers and specific sections will be laid out in front of each of the relevant authors in quite literally black and white. Now, the development of strategy is a group activity, and frequently the more inputs the better. But that needs to be separated off very distinctly from the writing function, because the writing function is a function for individuals. Writing in general, if you're going to do it well, requires focus and concentration. So how much more focus and concentration does strategic bid-winning writing justify? It's not a group task. The strategy is, the writing is not. If the strategy phase culminates in a very clear bid strategy document being produced, as I said, preferably with some writer's guides for the major section authors to follow, then for the most part, very much the most part, the writing phase is individual, and it should all be wrapped up. It should be a join the dots exercise. It's an exercise that's best done in silence and solitude, not one that's done in the cross flow of conversations, a percentage of which probably aren't even relevant to the bid. A cross flow of mobile phone calls and other constant interruptions. Take any big author you can name, whatever the genre, whoever you think of your favourite author, fiction, non-fiction, business, academic, whatever your pleasure. Can you imagine any one of those writing greats tapping away at their kitchen table with husbands, wives, kids, friends, etc., carrying on conversations all around them? Of course you couldn't. And if the writing greats perform their craft alone and in peace, why would anyone else, most especially a subject matter expert, for example, who probably doesn't write as a day job, why would they think that a silent, focused environment is entirely optional for them? Okay, let's play devil's advocate. You may well argue that your bid teams pull it off. Well, my question to you is this. How much would the quality of your writing be improved? How fewer rounds of editing would your submission need to go through? And how much would your productivity rate and speed be increased if the writing function was treated as one worthy of the utmost seriousness, focus and concentration, which doesn't happen in a quote-unquote war room, as trendy and cool as that sounds? I can answer that for you. The job would get done in about half the time, and you wouldn't have people completely trashing their health and their circadian rhythms and absorbing massive stress levels by working way past midnight for the last week or two before submission deadline. So that's what scrapping the war room would achieve. It would bring a logical, streamlined, uninterrupted, higher productivity rate conclusion to the production phase of your bids.
Roger that. Proceed with mission.